Bit of an investment highlight. We purchased Fenelon property about late 2016. Since then, we've aggressively done exploration, did a bulk sample, and have managed to actually try to get the size potential for this deposit since. The project is located in Abitibi, just about 70 kilometers as the crow flies from the detour mine on the Sunday Lake Deformation Zone. Since the purchase of the property, we've done close to about 85,000 meters. We did 75,000 meters of drilling last year. This year's program is about 100 to 120,000 meters. It's a fully funded program. Today we have about $55 million cash in the treasury. Our program for the year is about $36 million, and we have a bit of a flexibility to either accelerate the project or be able to look at other value accretive assets, or perhaps leave it for the 2021 continued exploration. We started looking at the project when we were doing the due diligence before the purchase, and the project had seen about 10 years of exploration, but particularly in about 150 meter by 150 meter down to about 150 meter depth. It was basically Swiss cheese, and they'd come up with about 40,000 ounces of about 16 or 18 grams a ton at the time. When we looked at it through the due diligence, we realized along this 4-kilometer strike length of the property, there were a lot of other drilled intersections that had never been followed, and everybody had just followed these high grades. We continued doing the same work in 2017, but trying to extend those zones. I think when we purchased the property, we felt that it had about 300 ounces per vertical meter. By the end of 2017, we'd increased that to over 1,000 ounces a vertical meter, but still had not drilled it below the 150 to 200 meters. About late 2017, we decided to put that into a bulk sample, and in 2018, we started that bulk sample, finished it first quarter last year. We actually managed to take about 33,000 ton bulk sample, about 18.5 grams a ton, with about 97% recovery. And since then, at the end of last year, we also, about 300 meters south of the property that we initially thought it was, basically just the main Gabbro zone, we discovered this Area 51, and I'll go through that in more detail. And that's basically been the turning point for the company, because this area has got the same similar high-grade veins as it was in the main Gabbro zone, but more importantly, it's sandwiched in a disseminated minerals that continues to have several hundred meters of good grade within that. We do have supportive shareholders of Eric Sprott, who's about 22% shareholder, Kirkland Gold, who just came in about late last year for about 10%, and we have William Day, who is roughly about 10% of the shareholder. We've tried to de-risk this project, particularly knowing that this is a pretty underexplored camp. There hasn't been really any mining on this belt on the Quebec side. The only mining has been in the Detour, particularly when Placer Dome owned the Detour Gold, and since Detour Gold mine or Detour decided to do that into an open pit. I'll talk to you about our shareholdership. Basically, the chart below just shows our performance, and obviously, it's been as a result of the continued exploration, successful exploration results since the purchase, and particularly since the beginning of last year. I'm a mining engineer myself, with over 35 years of experience in mining, in operations, engineering, and M&A. We have built a pretty strong team. I have my CFO here, who was the initial CFO of Kinross, and most recently with New Gold. And as well as we've also tried to build on the operations side as well, which we've hired a pretty strong operating team as well, because we do want to focus this project, continue going to the operation, and along the way, if any other person has a better plan for our shareholders, we certainly be all ears. So, as I mentioned, the project is on the Sunday Lake Deformation, and here you can see it's about 70 kilometers from the belt. We have other landholders such as Balmoral, Midland, and Probe Metals along the belt. But Fenelon Gold has been the most advanced property on this belt so far on the Quebec side, outside of Detour in Ontario. I mentioned that we've done the drilling. This year's program is intended to continue with the 75-meter step-outs in the deeper than 750 meter, and be able to come up with a resource, underground bulk mineable resource in the top 750 to 1,000 meters. So when we bought the property, this is basically sort of a tilt-driven mag survey of the property. Typically, when you see the mag broken, the mag fabric broken is either faults or other areas that could be of interest. Most of the focus had been on in this area in the past prior to Wallbridge, and that's just a zoomed-in portion of it. Most of the work that we had done in 2017 and 18 had been in here. We did continue trying to expand these Cayenne and Tabasco zones, but certainly not to the depths that we have so far. And certainly the area showed that there's a lot of other targets on the property. We had this southern target on the property that we wanted to explore, and it happened to be last year. This hole 51, we were trying to find the extent of the Tabasco. It was December 22nd. Our guys didn't want to set up on another hole, and they wanted to just follow up on that target. The initial depth of the hole was supposed to be 600 meters. We decided to extend that, and no more than a couple of days after, we actually hit visible gold into this, what we call a Jeremy Pluton, which we initially didn't think it would actually come to our property based on the geological maps. And we identified that, and we actually went through the whole Christmas and New Year's time, and we drilled about 230 meters into mineralization. Your typical find story, if you may. Since then, we did another hole in early 2019. We continued on that, and that was our hole 52. And just, by the way, the hole number was hole number 51, thus we call it the area 51, because at the time we didn't know what it would look like. So basically, that was the drilling that we were doing, trying to find this Tabasco from the north to south, and we found out that this Jeremy Pluton, which is actually a very important feature in the development of this, the mineralized zones in this area. We identified that it is in here, and I'll go through some of the section for you. So all along till about late 2019, we were continuing with these Jeremy Pluton and trying to figure out whether these shear zones continue in here. I believe it was the third quarter of last year, we found out that there's also another structure that is going east-northeast, west-northwest in here, that actually has the confluence of these two structures, this way and this way, is basically where the sweet spot of the deposits is. Basically, your shear zones are typically ductile, and your Jeremy Pluton is more of a brittle environment, so when they actually get closer and join together, and that's where you really get these bulges that you see in some of our. So this is basically what I was talking about. In the shear zones, even in the upper area, you generally get about 1 meter to 2 meters of double-digit grades. But as they go deeper, they tend to be wider and also more metal endowed. This is our hole 86, which we had about 48 meters of 22 grams a ton. And you have hole 54, is about 19 meters of 3. But within those, you still have hole 94 that has about 10 meters of 32 grams a ton. These are 75-meter step-outs. In a gold system, 75-meter step-outs is pretty aggressive. We actually decided to drill some deeper undercuts to these. We had a 230-meter undercut to one of these holes, and still managed to see that the mineralization continues. We had about 15 meters of about 5 grams a ton, 230 meter from the nearest hole that was drilled. Particularly the market sometimes thinks that if you had a 48 meters of 22 gram, you're going to have to continue every hole that should be there. But if you notice, even within the area, 30 meters over from a hole that was 11 meters of 5 gram, you do get the 10 meters of 32 grams a ton. So we're very encouraged by the fact that we've been able to push this from about 600 meters down to about 850 meters. We did drill another hole about 230 meters to the west, trying to see the continuity of this along strike, and we also intersected about 26 meters of abundant sulfides and visible gold. We now know that this lower Tabasco zone, which is one of our main shear zones, continues to demonstrate its continuity, not only along strike, but also to depth. So you can see all of the untested areas in this zone. So this year's program follows up on last year's 75-meter step-outs. We are going to do some infill drilling with this 100 to 120,000 meters, and be able to come up with a meaningful underground resource. And we just look at it as greater than 1 million ounce high-grade underground bulk mining potential. And as we're drilling from the south to north, we also intersect through the Jeremy Pluton, so all the near-surface drilling that we're doing, we're getting some of the assays, and so I know that I'm running out of time, but basically this is basically the area that we're going to continue drilling within this box, and in the lower Tabasco down to 750 meters, we're going to do 30 to 40 meter step outs. And to get an infill for a resource of indicated category from 750 to 1,000, we're going to be doing 75 meter step outs to get the indicated category. We do intend to drill down to about 1,500 meters in here to tell the market that the blue sky is there and that we think that this deposit continues. It's in Abitibi. Things don't stop at about 1,000 meters. Thank you.